Today we are going to be learning about the Ottoman Empire. We have several objectives in this lesson. The first thing we're going to be looking at is the rise and the spread of the Ottoman Empire. And then in tomorrow's lesson we'll be looking at the achievements of the Ottoman Empire. And then also throughout the lesson keep in mind the role of religion, specifically Islam, in political power as well as unity. What we see is over the next few days we're going to be studying several empires, the Safavid, Ottoman, as well as the Mughal Empire, and they are all considered gunpowder empires because of course they used gunpowder in their conquests, specifically cannons and firearms. So make sure we know which empires are considered gunpowder empires and how they got that name. Next, this is just a little map to give you some context of what is around during this time period. So we see the Aztec, the Maya, the Inca, then over in Europe we see France, England, Portugal, and Spain. And then if we look at the dynasties we're going to be talking about, we see the Ottoman, we see the Safavid, we see China, the Ming dynasty. That's just to give you a little context of what was around during this time. Here's another map zoomed in on the area we're going to be looking at. Again, what are the gunpowder empires? We have the Ottoman, the Safavid, and the Mughal. So first we have to talk about the Byzantine Empire before we can talk about the Ottoman. So the Byzantine Empire actually declined and it was replaced by the Ottoman Empire. Okay. So what we see is the Ottoman came into what's now modern-day Turkey and began their empire in where the Byzantine Empire had been. So the rise of the Ottoman Empire, what we see is actually the Ottoman Empire is one of the largest and longest lasting empires. So a name that we need to make sure we know is Mehmed II, and he was known as the Conqueror. So he was the Ottoman leader who conquered Constantinople, which was the capital of the Byzantine Empire, and it's now known as Istanbul. And what's important about Constantinople, it became the center of Islam, also a center of trade. Some of the goods that were traded during this time were silk, porcelain, spices, indigo, etc. Then we see, because the Byzantine Empire had been a Christian empire, we see now these churches being converted into mosques. So again, mosques are places where Muslims go to worship. Then what we see is over the next few centuries, the Ottoman rulers conquered other territories, expanding the Ottoman Empire. And one of the ways that they did that was they used religion. So they increased their territory by waging jihad, or holy wars, against other territories. So here's a map. So again, previously this is where the Byzantine Empire had been. Now it's going to be the Ottoman Empire, and we can see that by 1683 to 1699 we see just a huge empire, this whole area, again covering the whole Mediterranean. So we do need to know some specific terms related to government in the Ottoman Empire. One of the first reasons why they were successful is they actually allowed local rulers to continue to rule in the conquered territory. They just had to be supervised. One of the things we also see is they really encouraged the people that they conquered to convert to Islam. And then what we see is specifically they had a military made up of what are called janissaries. These are Christians who had converted to Islam, and the janissaries actually helped them. They used the military to help expand the empire, and then also gunpowder was used to expand the empire. Another term that we see here related to government is the Sultan. So the Sultan is going to be the head of the government. So for example, in our country, the title for our leader of our government is president. For the Ottoman Empire, it was Sultan. And so not only did they have political and military power, but they were also seen as the protector of Islam. They were considered the religious leader of Islam, as well as the earthly ruler of all Muslims. Next, we have the ulema, and what we see is this was a way for them to bring in Islam into their laws and into their education. So it was this council of religious advisors who made sure that the religious law was also being practiced and taught. This next person we're going to talk about is Suleiman. Suleiman, he was also, a nickname he got was the lawmaker. You'll see why in a second, and here's his picture. What we see, the reason why we study him specifically is because under his leadership, the Ottoman Empire reached its peak of peace and stability, and it flourished under his leadership. Some of the contributions that he made to the Ottoman Empire, he helped simplify the laws, which is why he got that nickname, the lawgiver. He was known for furthering education by building schools and libraries, as building mosques. Again, that's where Muslims go to worship. The last thing we're going to talk about today is the decline of the Ottoman Empire. Interestingly enough, the Ottoman Empire, like I mentioned, is one of the longest lasting. And a little fun fact, the Ottoman Empire was still in existence the last time the Chicago Cubs won the World Series. So that tells you how long it's been since they won, but also how long the Ottoman Empire lasted. So there's several reasons for the decline. One of the things that we see is it was just too large to maintain. We've seen this problem over and over in history. An empire conquers so much territory, it's difficult to maintain political unity. Also, what we see is they did try to conquer Vienna, that failed. So without that conquest, they couldn't get new wealth, so they just lost their momentum and things like that. And also just logistically, it's difficult to communicate, difficult to maintain the military as well as the government. Next, we see some problems with leaders. We see things like corruption. We also see rulers who are incompetent. Interestingly enough, the Ottoman Empire actually always transferred power to a single person, and one family ruled the Ottoman Empire for 7 centuries. And what they would do is the leaders would actually kill their brothers, and if they had sons, they'd kill them, so that they couldn't compete for power. But then toward the end, they started just imprisoning them. So then they would have these people coming out of prison and becoming the new sultan. So they weren't prepared for leadership. Also, we see economic problems as a cause of the decline. So we see like I said, Constantinople was the center of trade, but now we see the Europeans have more of an edge on trade because of having markets in the Americas. Also, they had competing trade coming from India. There were new trade routes. There was also unemployment in Europe, so they just weren't open to the new innovation and ideas that were seen in other parts of the world. And then what we see, there were several other factors, but these are some big ones, is that the empire ended in 1922, and it ended when Turkey was declared a republic. So that was November 1st, 1922. So this empire lasted for more than 600 years. So again, in your summary at the bottom, make sure you talk about the rise, the spread, and talk about the role of religion specifically in your summary. And in our next lesson, we'll be looking at the cultural accomplishments of the Ottoman.